This past summer, we saw a major blockbuster trade go down. Arguably, one of the best offensive defensemen of our generation was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, why is this so significant? Well, not only did this future Hall of Famer and three-time Norris Trophy winner get traded to a potential super team, but what makes him such an important figure to talk about in the hockey world is that he is one of only 6 defensemen in NHL history to ever produce 100 points in a season. Besides Bobby Orr, 4 of them achieved their 100-point seasons through the live puck era. Now, what is the live puck era? Well, it is considered a time when goal scoring was at an all-time high in the NHL, spanning from 1979 through 1994. As of 2023, we are entering a modern version of a live puck era where skill and speed is now the way to go. As we continue on this pace of scoring, it seems that we are heading in a direction when goal scoring was high in the 1980s and early 90s. In this video, we'll be going over active NHL players who have achieved absurd records throughout their careers. I'll also be comparing players who played in the 80s and 90s, just to show how near impossible it is to achieve these numbers in today's game. This past summer, we saw Tom Wilson sign a 7-year contract for $6.5 million per season, which will begin in the 2024-25 season. This will mean that we will have another 8 more years of this agitating player, arguably one of the dirtiest players in the league. What people are talking about is that his contract will age very poorly, as players with this stature tend to wear down by their mid-30s, as he will be 37 years old by contract's end. But what people may not realize is that with his agitating playstyle, he is currently tied for 3rd in active penalty minutes in 680 games, which is the most penalized player per game played in the league with 500 or more games. Looking through to see if any players come close to Tom Wilson's trajectory, the only players I can compare them to are Zach Kassian and Mark Borowiecki. The only difference between the two is that Zach has a less penalty per minute average per game, and that Mark has far less games played in the NHL. Assuming Wilson maintains that play and is healthy, given his average projection in the 8 years, that'll sum up to 2,338 penalty minutes, ranking him amongst the top 30 all time. And within the top 30 of those players, 25 have played in the live puck era. The numbers Tom Wilson is putting up while being consistent is something that we'll unlikely see again. Moving from the most hated player of Tom Wilson, we have the Rat himself, Brad Marchand. Now, what's so significant about him? Well, he currently has the active record for most shorthanded goals with 33. What makes this number so significant is that the second highest active player was a player who just retired this past season, which was Patrice Bergeron. Marchand is amongst 16 players to have scored 33 or more shorthanded goals in their entire career. Of the 16, 11 played through the live puck era. What makes this even more fascinating is that the next highest players to have not played from that era are all tied with 34, meaning that if Brad Marchand can score 2 more shorthanded goals this upcoming season, not only will he be in the top 10 amongst all-time shorthanded goal scorers, but he'll be putting himself in a category never seen before playing in the modern era. Going from scoring shorthanded goals, we have the greatest goal scorer of all time, Alexander Ovechkin. We all know at this point that he'll be passing Wayne Gretzky's record. He is one of 3 players to ever score 50 goals in 9 seasons. The 2 who've done so were, as aforementioned, Wayne Gretzky and Mike Bossy, 2 players who scored a bunch during the live puck era. What makes this even more crazy is that he had to sit through 2 lockouts and a pandemic, which likely prevented him from scoring more goals and getting more 50-goal seasons in his amazing career. Going from one 50-goal scorer, we have another to pass the torch over once Ovechkin's career is done, Auston Matthews. What makes one of his goal records so unique was that it was something that Alex Ovechkin couldn't do, scoring 4 goals in his debut game, not done since the NHL's inaugural season. Not only that, Matthews also has bragging rights, as in the 2021-22 season, he went on scoring 51 goals in a 50-game stretch. The last time a player did so was Mario Lemieux when he did it in the 1995-96 season. That feat was done 5 times between 1990 to 1994. It is likely it can happen again, as Matthews has the capability to go on another goal-scoring spree. And another player who could potentially do that is Leon Draisaitl. In the 21-22 season, he was on pace when he went on a scoring spree, scoring 21 goals in 19 games, but quickly regressed afterwards. But this record isn't about goals, as it would be about points. In that same year in the playoffs, Leon Draisaitl would go on a tear during the second round against the Calgary Flames, scoring the most points in a 5-game series with 17 points. Not only that, he would also score 15 assists, which leads all players in a playoff series. Even players who have played a 7-game series never reached that many assists in one series. Amongst the top 10, Leon stands in first place with assists in the 21-22 season. With the exception of Henrik Sedin, the rest of the top 10 all came between 1982 to 1994. No other player has come close since. Now, you can't talk about Draisaitl without talking about Connor McDavid. But before we talk about his astounding scoring this past season, let me tell you a quick story of my time watching hockey. The late 2000s was the first time I was exposed to watching the game. During the early 2010s, I thought it was going to be impossible for players to score numbers equaled back in the 1980s. Seriously, at one point, we had a top leading scorer produce 87 points. So, if you were to tell me within a decade that there would be a leading scorer that had the potential to produce nearly double the amount, I would have thought you were crazy. This is where Connor McDavid comes into play. We've all seen his dominance this past season, scoring 153 points for the first time in his career. Not only is he one of 6 players to score 150 plus points in a season, the most 150 point producers occurred when there were 4 in the 1988-89 season. Having 6 100-point seasons in his career also ties him with 6th place all-time for most 100-point seasons. All the players above him produced their career highs during the live puck era. In the 21-22 season, his career 33 points puts him in record-breaking territory. This ranks him amongst the top 20 all-time. 15 of those 20 players on that list all got their totals in the live puck era. What makes this even more legendary is given the fact he didn't even make the finals and was swept in the 3rd round playing in 16 games. Assuming he played at least 20 games, he could put up over 40 points. And that's just a conservative estimate. Imagine how many points he could have produced if he were to make it there. With the best player in the league, we have another player that'll go down as arguably a top 5 player all time once his career is done. Sidney Crosby. Not only does he have insane numbers just like McDavid, he also has phenomenal statistics. In his entire career, he's been above a point per game average. This past season would mark 18 straight seasons, scoring above a point per game, surpassing Gordie Howe, which he had 17. There's only one more player he needs to pass, and that would be Wayne Gretzky. If Crosby is able to produce at a point per game rate again, he'll be able to tie the Great One with 19 straight seasons in a row. It is truly unbelievable to see how much the league has changed within the last decade, how older players had managed to adapt, and how the younger generation continue to be even better than ever before. With the anticipation of Connor Bedard and the expectation of the 2023 draft class, the league will only continue to improve by producing highly skilled players. And it is something that we are all looking forward to in the near future.